Yeah. I just spoke to her. She's from.
I think ma'am has joined. Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good
Good
morning.
morning, ma'am.
Good morning, ma'am. Good morning.
Good morning, ma'am.
Morning. I was trying to charge my laptop.
Yeah, I think ma'am has frozen. Okay, I can see her now.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Deepika,
Morning,
ma'am.
Neelam ma'am.
Good morning.
Good
Ma'am,
morning,
good
ma'am.
morning. Nice to see you. Anita, ma'am, and Pooja. Pooja, ma'am. Payal.
Good morning, Neelam
Good
ma'am.
morning,
Payal is
all.
also, yeah, Payal is also there. Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
Ma'am, can we start?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Arun?
Respected Beer ma'am, Nitika ma'am, Neelam ma'am, Shravasti ma'am, Anita ma'am, Ashwati ma'am, teachers, and my dear friends. It is my great pleasure to welcome you all to our presentation. Why do people behave the way they do? The answer is deceptively simple, yet powerful. They behave the way they do because their behavior gets them what they want. Now, that's an answer from the psychological point of view. But what if I told you that biology too plays an integral role in our behavior? Everything psychological is simultaneously biological. Now, many factors influence the biology of our behavior, some of which operate below conscious awareness. Presenting the biology of behavior.
What would I do if I had Hitler? It's not hard to imagine once I allow myself. Sever his spine at the neck, take out his eyes with a blunt instrument, cut out his tongue, puncture his eardrums, leave him alive on a respirator, tube fed, not being able to move or feel or hear or say. Just leave him there. And then inject him with something cancerous that's going to fester and pustulate until each and every single cell in his body is screaming in agony. Until each and every second feels like an eternity in hell. That's what I would do to Hitler. I've had this fantasy since I've been a kid, and still do sometimes. And whenever I do, my heart speeds up. All these plans for the most evil, wicked soul that has ever been. But there's the problem. Problem being, I don't actually believe in souls or evil. And for me, wicked's all in the musical. But I do agree that some people must be killed. But I'm against the death penalty. But I also like violent movies. But I'm strict for gun control. But there was a time I was at the laser tag with my friends. I had a fun time sitting, hiding in the corner and shooting all those people. So basically, I'm a basic confused human when it comes to violence. So how do we make sense of the biology of our best behaviors and our worst ones? And those ambiguously in between?
What's hard is understanding the meaning of the behavior. Because in some settings, pulling a trigger is an appalling act. In others, it's heroically self-sacrificial. In some settings, putting your hand in someone else's is deeply compassionate. In others, it's a deep betrayal. The challenge is to understand the biology of the context of our behaviors. And that's real tough. One thing that's clear, every bit of behavior has multiple levels of causality. Let's take an example. You have a gun. There's a crisis going on. Rioting, violence, people running around. A stranger's running at you in an agitated state. You can't quite tell if the expression is frightened, threatening, angry, holding something that kind of looks like a handgun. You're not sure. The stranger's coming running at you and you pull the trigger. And it turns out that the thing in the person's hand was a cell phone. We asked the biological question. What was going on that caused this behavior? What caused this behavior? And this is a multitude of questions. What was going on in your brain 1 second before you pull that trigger? And this brings us into the realm of the brain region called the amygdala. What was the level of activity in our amygdala 1 second before?
But to understand that, we have to step back a little bit. What was going inside the environment seconds to minutes before it impacted your amygdala? Now, obviously, the sound and the sight of writing was pertinent. But in addition to, you are more likely to mistake a cell phone for a handgun if the stranger was a male, big looking, and of a different race. Furthermore, if you're in pain, you're hungry, or you're sad, your frontal cortex won't be working either, whose job is to get your amygdala in time, saying, "Are you really sure it's a gun there?" But we need to step back further. And now we have to look from days to weeks before. And with this, we enter the realm of hormones. For example, testosterone. Whether regardless of your sex, if you have elevated the amount of testosterone in your blood, you're more likely to think a face with a neutral expression is instead looking threatening. Pushing back further, weeks to months before. But now you'll ask, where's the relevance there? And with this, we enter the realm of neural plasticity, the fact that your brain can change with response to experiences too. So if your previous month was filled with stress and trauma, your amygdala would have enlarged, your brain cells would have more excitable, and your frontal cortex would have atrophied. And all of this will be relevant to what happened in that 1 second.
But pushing back even further back to childhood and fetal life and all the different versions that could come in. Now, obviously, that's the time your brain is being constructed, and that's important. But in addition, experience during those times produce what are called epigenetic changes, permanent in some cases, permanently activating certain genes, turning off the others. As an example of this, if as a fetus you were exposed to a lot of stress hormones through your mother, epigenetics is going to produce your amygdala in adulthood as a more excitable form, and you're going to have elevated stress hormone levels. But pushing back even further back to when you were just a fetus, back to when all of you was just a collection of genes. Now, genes are really important to all of this, but critically, genes don't determine anything because genes work differently in different environments. One key example here, there's a variant of a gene called MAOA, and if you have that variant, you're far more likely to commit antisocial violence if and only if you were abused as a child. Genes and environment interact, and what's happening in that 1 second before you pull the trigger reflects your lifetime of those gene environment interactions. But we have got to push further, even further back to millions of years. Because if we are talking about genes, implicitly we are now talking of the evolution of genes. And what you see, for example, patterns across different primate species. Some of them have evolved for extremely low levels of aggression, others have evolved in the opposite direction, and floating there in between by every measure are humans. Once again, this confused, barely defined species that has all these potentials to go one way or the other.
So, what has this gotten us to? Basically, what we're seeing here is, if you want to understand a behavior, whether it's an appalling one, a wondrous one, or a confusing one, if you want to understand any of that, you've got to take into account what happened a second before to 1,000,000 years before. Everything in between. So what can we conclude at this point? Officially, it's complicated. Wow, that's really helpful. It's complicated, and we must be real careful, real cautious before you can conclude you know what causes a behavior, especially a behavior that you're judging harshly.
We are biologically wired to process differences in race, ethnicity, gender, social status, and beauty. We form us-them dichotomies within milliseconds of exposure to other human beings. Dressing, ornamentation, and regional accent augment the visual cues as markers of values, beliefs, and ideologies. The single most important point about all of this is the one having to do with change. Every bit of biology mentioned here can change in different circumstances. For example, ecosystems change. Thousands of years ago, the Sahara was a lush grassland. Then cultures change. In the 17th century, the most terrifying people in Europe were the Swedes rampaging all over the place. This is what the Swedish military does now. They haven't had a war in 200 years. And most importantly, brains change. Neurons grow new processes, circuits disconnect. Everything in the brain changes, and out of this come extraordinary examples of human change. First one. He is John Newton, a British theologian who played a central role in the abolition of slavery from the British Empire in the early 1800s. And amazingly, this man spent decades as a younger man as the captain of a slave ship and then as an investor in slavery, growing rich from this. And then something changed. Something changed in him. Something that Newton himself celebrated by writing his famous hymn, Amazing Grace. This is Zenji Abe on the morning of December 6, 1941, about to lead a squadron of Japanese bombers to attack Pearl Harbor. And this is the same man 50 years later to the day, hugging a man who survived the attack on ground. And as an old man, Zenji Abe came to a gathering of Pearl Harbor survivors at a ceremony there and in halting English apologized for what he had done as a younger man.
Now, it doesn't always require decades. Sometimes extraordinary changes could just happen in hours. Consider the World War I Christmas truce of 1914. The powers that had been negotiated a brief truce so that soldiers could go out, collect bodies from no man's land in between the trench lines. And soon the British and German soldiers were doing that. And then helping each other carry bodies, helping each other dig graves in the frozen grounds, praying together, having Christmas together, exchanging gifts. And by the next day, they were playing soccer together, exchanging addresses so that they could meet after the war. The truce kept on going on until the officers had to arrive and said, "We will shoot you unless you go back to trying to kill each other." And all it took here was hours for these men to develop a completely new category of us and them. And sometimes changes could just occur in seconds. Probably the most horrifying event in the Vietnam War was the My Lai massacre. A brigade of American soldiers went into an undefended village full of civilians and killed between 350 to 500 of them. Mass raped women, children, mutilated bodies. It was appalling. This man, Hugh Thompson, this is the man who stopped the My Lai massacre. He was piloting a helicopter gunship, landed there, got out, and saw American soldiers shooting babies, shooting old women, figured out what was going on, and took his helicopter and did something that undid his lifetime conditioning as to who is a us and who is a them. He landed his helicopter between some surviving villagers and American soldiers, and he trained his machine guns on fellow Americans and said, "I will shoot you if you don't stop the killing."
Now, these people are no more special than any of us. Same neurons, same neurochemicals, same biology. And what we're left with here is this. Those who don't study the history of extraordinary human change, those who don't study the biology of what can transform us from our best behaviors to our worst ones, those who don't do this are destined not to be able to repeat these incandescent, magnificent moments. Thank you. With that, we now come to the end of our presentation. We are open to any questions from our audience.
Yeah, I had a question. Throughout the presentation, I guess one of you said that, we form us-them groupings throughout our lives, and that our affiliations vary over time. So my question is, are these groupings, are these visions in our mind permanent, or can we change them throughout the life as we go forward?
Would anyone like to answer that? Okay, I'll answer it myself. No, but it's important that we acknowledge factions exist. We can follow our better instincts. We can focus on larger shared goals. We can always learn to step inside someone else's shoes and see the world from a different vantage point. We can always learn to stop, question, think, and reason when confronting ingrained biases. Thank you.
I would like to ask a question. You started your presentation with the question, why do we behave the way we do? So did you really find the answer to that?
Yeah, I would like to answer that question. Yes, we did find an answer to that question. So we behave the way we do because our genes and brains are pliable, and they haven't only been shaped by our own personal experiences, but also by those of our ancestors and by evolution. And however, a biological explanation of behavior will never, obviate our personal responsibilities. When we are faced with some ideological differences in the world, for example, our genes will never mean that the choices of, forgiveness, kindness, gentleness are close to us.
Thank you, friends. May I now request Veer ma'am to share her thoughts with us?
Yeah. Thank you, all of you. This is grade 11. Are you all biology students? No.
Ma'am, commerce without math.
Okay. Commerce?
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. No, I should not even express surprise, because why not? So today we live in an interdisciplinary, integrated world. So it's not necessary that only bio students should study about, subjects like evolution and all that. I was actually thinking about the question which Ananya asked, that when you were doing your research for this presentation, did you find that it helps you to understand your behavior? That's very important, because when we do any kind of project or any kind of research work, how does it relate to me as an individual? How does it make me feel? Does it help me to understand myself better? Does it educate me more? So how do I personalize this whole project to my own self? And very well answered. Again, I think, the fact that, one is influenced by so many factors. Behavior is influenced by so many factors, and also the fact that we are, malleable, and our actions and our behavior would change according to the circumstances, and it's not necessary that it is not set in stone. So I think that's a very good point, which was brought out by who was that?
Swara.
No, just now somebody answered the question. Aaron spoke about it. So I'm a very good subject to talk to take up, especially now, because we started to think a little more deeply about who we are and how we're behaving and what is happening, and from here we have an opportunity to rethink and recalibrate our lives, right? So it's important. It's a good subject to research and to think about, because it will give us some more perspectives on what should be the approach to the future, because nobody knows now what's going to happen. There have been so many theories about different things, right? And each one would have a validation, which would have some point which will convince you. Okay, so not that one is right and the other is wrong. So as long as it helps you to understand yourself better and the world in which you live better, so how you relate to the world, I think that should be the guiding force. Guiding line. How do you face life when there are so many different people, and each one will come out with with a theory which is, which they will validate with their own arguments, right? So which one is true, which one is not true? And we are, like I said, an amalgamation of so many influences. So it's important, therefore, to be able to think which one is more relatable or more relevant for me. Okay, and that's the way maybe one should approach life. And that's what I think. There are so many influences. Which is the one that you're going to take forward? It will be the one that you relate to the most. So again, it's what you're experiencing at a given moment of time. So as you were presenting, I'm maybe at a moment of time in my life where there are certain things happening in my personal life, and there are certain things that I am doing or reading or being exposed to. And so all of those will have an influence on how I understand my behavior, and I understand everybody's behavior, and I understand the world better. Okay, so I think the best thing to do is to be flexible and to have an open mind to behavior, because so many times behavior is also a reaction to circumstances. Many times, in fact. Okay, so when we start to judge somebody's behavior on the basis of what we think is right or wrong, but we don't know the circumstances in which that person is or is behaving in, right? And those circumstances may have an influence on that person at that point of time. So, personally, this presentation hit a very hard lesson to me, because I'm at a point of time where my family, I'm something that we're going through, and it actually gave me a lot of messages, a lot of insights. And thank you so much for a very, very thoughtful topic. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Biri ma'am, for your insightful and encouraging words. I really hope that everyone here would have learned something new today. And yes, so now may I request Nitika ma'am to say a few words?
Good morning, everyone, once again, and thank you for a beautiful presentations. And there are so many thoughts, I want to speak about a lot of what I've seen. So I'll start with, I love, first of all, let me compliment you guys. You all have done a wonderful job. I would also like to, I love the way, you've given historical context to biological behavior or biology, So I would also like to give it, being an English teacher, I would like to give it a little literature, a kind of a literature context, as well as a little philosophy I would like to talk about, So I believe I am the antagonist and the protagonist of my story, So there's the antagonist within as well as the protagonist within, So what I'm trying to say over here is, when you were talking about the historical context of the good and the bad or whatever, so I believe that this mind is a very complex creature, So half the battle is won if you have the mind in control, So if you've heard about gun toting and you've heard about the gun culture in the US and whatever, so is it genetic, or is it, if you hear about stray incidents where these young college students go around and, on a massacre and on a rampage, what happens then, so there are so many theories, and has anyone come up with an answer? If it was a stray incident, why did it happen? And if it isn't, is does this run in the family? So there are so many questions, and do we all have answers to it? Then if I can behave like a hero in one situation and I'm totally the opposite in another situation, it could be circumstantial, it could be the pressures, it could be anything that probably I am going through. Like what ma'am said, we need to understand ourselves better. For example, I'll just give you one example. What motivates me? I'm not the same person I was maybe 2 months ago, maybe even a week ago. So if someone gives me 1 bar of chocolate today, which motivates me to work, the same motivation will not work the next week. Why? Because either I'm not satisfied with that 1 bar of chocolate. So which means I either require 2 bars of chocolate next week, or I require a different kind of a motivation next week. So who am I? So it's very important to let us delve within an answer. So very, very complex. And thank you, students, because this has, brought so many questions to the fore. Thank you so much. Lovely.
Thank you, Nitika ma'am. I'm sure everybody is going to ponder upon the question of who I am and why I behave this way. So now I would request our life skill coaches to share a few words. Vandana ma'am, Neelam ma'am.
So, Vandana ma'am is there?
No, Vandana ma'am.
So I'll say a few words because I have a doctor's appointment, so I have to leave. Students, you gave me so much of food for thought. There was so much to it. As a life skills coach, I always tell you, you can choose your response. Don't react, but respond. This is like a loop. Like a loop, I keep on saying that. But now you've given me more dimensions to that. I also believe that, between stimulus and response, there is a little gap. And in that gap, the way we behave is something that defines us as a human being. So, in a crisis, one person will be calm, like B ma'am. And in a crisis, a person like me who is a very hyper person, I would get all fidgety. So, it is that gap that defines who we are. And also, we can choose who we want to be. Like Nitika ma'am said, we keep changing. What a complex machinery human beings are. Somewhere I had read we have about 37,000 trillion cells in the body. And how they all regenerate. So I think in a year's time, is it Pooja ma'am will be able to tell me better, in a year's time, all our cells become new. So then we become a different person. So that new person has an opportunity to behave in a way that would be more socially acceptable. But what really made me think is your statement that what happens in that 1 second before one pulls the trigger. That is a very important, that's a very profound, thing. So maybe there's a complete disconnect in the neuroplasticity of the brain, or, the emotions take over so much. And then you talked about genes, you talked about environment. So it was a very wholesome conversation and a presentation. So I really am going to think about this more. I'm going to read about this more. I like to research more. So I would first of all like to congratulate each participant. And Pooja ma'am, you've done a brilliant job with them, because during the lockdown, if you start thinking, who am I? You have plenty of time now. And you can choose to be the person you were genetically made and the person you want to be. So this is the best time. So please have a deep dive into your emotions and please emerge like a phoenix into the perfect version of yourself. Congratulations and thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Neelam ma'am. I'm sure everybody would have been encouraged by the thought of emerging as a phoenix, because everyone has had a fair share of ups and downs in the lockdown, and I think everyone can emerge as the best of themselves after we start coming to school. So now I would like to call Shravasti ma'am, if she would like to share a few words with us.
Hello students. Hello Veer ma'am, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yes. And good afternoon, all my seniors and my teachers and students. Though I have been seeing you all rehearsing, but today's presentation was much better than the previous ones that you all were doing. So excellent job done, and this makes me proud one way, because If you all remember, I had done a full 1 hour session on who am I in the beginning of your session. And there was a lot of biology coming in and going out every time we were on a life skills session with each other. And yes, for sure, the biology is an integral part. Now that I am speaking to you, you have no idea how many biological things are happening all over around me and around you people. So all I would say is that if you all have understood what you all just presented, then the work is done. Then I actually do not need to talk too much on it, because you already know what you have presented just now. But if you remember, I had once taken a session in which I had told you all, for every reaction, whether it is a positive or a negative, give yourself 60 seconds. You remember that we had done this? Give yourself 60 seconds before reacting to any situation, because that's when your processing in the brain happens. There are many times where your amygdala gets some rest actually. Now, if you are reacting with the reaction of the amygdala, then you're actually not reacting the way you should be reacting. That's what we had done sessions on this before. So keep this one thing in mind. This is the only takeaway in every class. The few things I emphasize on, one of them is this, that we will come through a lot of ups and downs in our lives. It's up to us how we react to that situation. And the reaction depends on our 60 seconds. So whether it is, there are many times when you are physically unwell, you react in a particular manner. Sometimes when you are extremely happy, you react in a particular manner. But somewhere when you are in your normalcy, you react in a very neutral manner. To get into that normalcy, you need that 60 seconds. You need to calm yourself down. You need to breathe in a regular manner before you decide on how you want to react to that. So this is the only takeaway I want to give it to you all. Rest of it, excellent session with a lot of learning. I do not want to put my views on this at this moment, as Neelam ma'am said, that she's going to go and read up these things. There are many things which I learned new today. So even I would want to go and read up stuff and understand before I even want to put my views through. Okay, so excellent job. Anita ma'am, the topic was really, really interesting. So thank you for bringing this topic up. Pooja ma'am, excellent work. I think so. She does it best, you know, getting students together and performing. I think she is the best mentor we have, and we are lucky to have her in our institution. Thank you so much, all of you all.
Thank you so much, Sravasti ma'am. Thanks a lot for sharing the 60-second concept again. Now I would like to call Anita ma'am.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. So I've been hearing, and of course, in all the practice session, we have practiced it together. But even though I felt it was a hurried affair because we got very less time, but we bring out our best in that short period. And I especially thought this is the right time to connect with your own Beer ma'am, because you all are a little stressed up with the exam thing, especially the online and offline mode, and continuously your parents or you have been asking questions either to Nitika ma'am or me approaching your class teachers. So I thought this is the best time for you all to connect with ma'am, and you can have all questions put up to ma'am, and ma'am will handle, and she will ease you out with the kind of experience she has now. And personally, you all have done a wonderful job, each one of you. Yesterday only I had shared my views that it's a small piece of information because it's an ongoing research topic, behavioral science, and there's so much to research on it. So while we figured out this topic, I myself was personally interested in putting up this presentation. And interestingly, we involved students from science as well as commerce background. So like ma'am thought initially that they were only biology students, they were students from all the sections. And while we were researching on this assembly, we also came across a book which is Behave by Robert Sapolsky. I'm right, Pooja ma'am? So the biology of humans at our best and worst. So I'm planning to buy that book and read that book because he's put in a lot of research work in that book, and I'm interested to read that book. So in case those who are interested in knowing more about behavioral sciences, buy that book and read for yourself. And also whatever Neelam ma'am, Beer ma'am, Nitika ma'am has shared with you and Shravasti ma'am, also think about it. They have shared a good insight about this topic as well. So thank you and wonderful job done. Thank you so much, students. Bharan and Raghav, you had a lot of questions to ask to Beer ma'am. So now you all may please go ahead.
They weren't questions as such. We
Ma'am
just
will
wanted
not judge you. Ma'am will not judge you. I said ma'am is.
Yeah, definitely. We just wanted to know, ma'am, that the mode of examinations, how will they be conducted this time, as in for our 11th finals, which they are beginning in less than 2 weeks now.
So before I answer, let me just first ask Nitika ma'am what is on her mind.
Yes.
And so that we get a 360 perspective, and then I'll come back. Yeah. Nitika?
Yeah. Yes, so I'll just fill all the, since the students are here, it's a good forum to answer all these questions that are plaguing you, you know. So what has happened is that, ma'am, we had planned an offline mode of examination. We thought, you know, probably by the middle of March, we will all see each other in school. We haven't met this year's grade 11 at all, you know. So I was very hopeful that, you know, probably we could go ahead and have an offline exam with them. But seems not that, till now, we've not got any go-ahead from the BMC. Again, having said that, if I, you know, you guys are worried, but I don't understand where the worry stems from, because you have to study. So whether it's an offline or an online shouldn't bother you at all. If you really think about it, that shouldn't bother you. Secondly, we are not getting any clear answers. If you see, even in the newspapers, and I've been keeping a track every day, there's been no clear, you know, they've not asserted that, you know, that the lockdown has to continue till 31st of March or something like that. So probably, and see, CBSE has also announced that the practicals will be conducted in the month of March. And we are no closer to any clarity, neither are you, you know, students. So I would just tell you that bear with us for some time. In another week, probably we will know where we stand. BMC probably will announce dates when schools should reopen. All pan-India schools have reopened, you know, and students have been coming to school to, you know, for mock practicals and such. So I am requesting you to wait for another week to let me declare whether we are planning an online or an offline exam. But having said that, I would tell you, you continue your studies. You know, I'll give you definitely a week's advance notice. Does that work?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Yeah. So, so I think what Nitika ma'am has said makes a lot of sense. So let me just say that, you know, life, especially as we've experienced it in the last 1 year, can throw a curveball at any moment of time. Okay. So you can, and you need to deal with it, right? So one of the things, as we've said, and I remember at the beginning of grade 11, in the orientation, we spoke about how this is the first time we're actually experiencing change the way we've talked about it, right? We've always talked about change being a constant and change being unpredictable, and, you know, change being uncertain and all of that. But this is the first time, it's like the wolf, you know, the proverbial wolf has actually come, you know. So, and we're going through it, we are facing it, right? So that said, it has actually prepared us, it has actually helped us to become more adaptable, right? It has helped us for the future, which is going to be even more uncertain. So it has prepared us for greater change or change at any moment of time, okay? So one of the things which Neela ma'am said about me, and said that, you know, she's very calm and cool through in a crisis. And that's, again, you know, it has not come from a book, a textbook, or it has not come from some wisdom from somewhere. It's actually come from living life. Okay, so living life has taught me that when there is a crisis, or when living in life at any point of time, when you're faced with a big challenge, it's important that we break it into smaller compartments, small parts which are solvable, right? So we need to break it into small parts. Okay, so your big problem right now is an exam, okay, and which the medium, of course, should not matter, because if you studied, it doesn't matter whether you're doing online or offline. Okay, so right now, the part that you should be concentrating now on is studying. Okay, basically just do your best. Just study the best that you can. Make the most of the situation, the time that you have, the resources that you have, your teachers, your textbooks, your question banks, your time, your ability, all of that, put that to good use. Okay, that's all we are asking you to do, because we are not looking at this exam as something which is going to decide the future of your life or your future of your career or the future of your admission into college. We're not going to do that, right? Everybody knows that this has been an extraordinary year. Okay, so everybody is going to relate to you or to your performance given the context. So there is a context in which you're writing the exams. Okay, so there are students who are writing grade 12 exams, and they're also writing the all the competitive exams, and now they've had no physical classes, so they've not had this face-to-face interaction with their teachers. They also have to study their grade 11 syllabus for the JEE exam. Their exams are pushed. There's so many factors. There's so much happening, and so the dynamics are so so volatile right now for them, and they're in a very, very crucial year. They're at a very crucial juncture because they have to go to college. You are still in a year of school where it's still an internal thing. So don't worry overly. Don't overthink. I think that's very important. Don't overthink. Okay, just do the best that you can,
Yes.
and the school will not. We're not here to punish you. We're not here to make you suffer. We're not here to do something to, oh my God. So, we're not sadistic here, right? We have your interest at heart, okay? We were thinking that, one, that of course we will meet you, and that was a very, very big factor why we wanted you back in school. The other thing is that, we've been talking to people who haven't stepped out at all during the pandemic, and the moment they're coming out now, and the first few days are really difficult. Now, I don't know how about you all, whether you've been stepping out of home or not, but it's very important that we take these small, measured risks, step out, see how it is, because people are not steady on their feet when they're coming out. And it's very natural because you haven't been, you haven't stepped out. So the environment is different. So, how physically you relate to, stepping out, being outside the house after so many months. There's so many factors at play. Okay. So I'm not saying only for the exams. I'm saying just generally try to see if you can take calculated risks. Okay. Where you say, okay, let me just push a little bit and see how do I fare, how do I manage, get out of that comfort zone. So right now your comfort zone is to get up in the morning and attend classes online, right? So if it is little different, so even we don't have the answers. So right now, if you ask me for any answers, I don't have answers. The board doesn't have answers. The government doesn't have answers. Okay, we don't know. Like Nitika ma'am was sharing, that we still haven't got the hall tickets for grade 12. We don't know where are they going to be writing the exams. How are their practicals going to be? Okay, so imagine the uncertainty there. So what I'm saying is, don't make this a big challenge. The big challenge is what your goal is right now is to study the best that you can, because this is what you're studying now is going to be very useful when you start to apply for colleges. Okay, so it's not about this exam. It's not about the final exam here. It's about what you learn from your grade 11. What have you learned? What are the value add that you've got from this year, which will, take you forward after grade 12. So it's a 2-year program. It's not a 1 year and 1 year over and then it's another year. Not like that. It's a continual program and look at it as a stepping stone to your future. So just give your best, and we'll see. I mean, as of now, I'm also wondering whether we will be able to do an offline. I don't think so. It doesn't look like. So we will, maybe mostly do an online. The idea is that we want you to just study. I mean, just so that you yourself feel good about what you have learned. It's about that. For us, it doesn't matter. The marks don't matter.
Yes, ma'am.
It's about what is the value that you gain from this year in terms of academic, aptitude, or in terms of, how you presented today. It's so amazing for us. That's a very big win, a big high for us. That you're doing this kind of stuff. I mean, it's been a year of growth for you. It shouldn't be a year of a zero sum thing. Okay, it's been a year of growth. Yes, we've lost out certain things. We've not met you, but we've still gained something in this year, and that's what we're looking forward to.
Yes.
And that should be your approach to life. Because there will be so many sudden, sudden things that happen, and you have to cope with it, right? And this has actually been a very good preparatory year for you, to prepare you for life. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
But don't worry too much about exams. It's just one more exam, that's it.
Also, ma'am, I have a small question, if you don't mind me asking one more question. Actually, I was reading about it in the paper the other day. So since we've had the lockdown, since we've had the pandemic, it's almost been a year. So there have been quite a few changes. So are there any changes that you've brought to your personal life that have, to reduce your own carbon footprint, as in before you leave, so that your carbon footprint after you're gone, how much it gets reduced by the time you do? Are there any changes you've made in your personal life? Just interesting to know about.
Okay, I will have to give it some thought. I haven't thought about it. Of course, the fact that, everybody, I mean, that's applied to everybody, that everybody's been at home. So, you're not stepping out, and that itself is a huge saving of carbon, footprints. But that said, I think the big change that I see in myself is one, that, one is become more, one is more subscribing to the minimalistic way of life. I mean, you realize that you're chasing so many things, and for what? So I think the value of life itself has become very, very significant, and so one is being extra careful about the environment, about your health, about life itself. Okay, so that's a huge. I think that's been a huge lesson for me. It's also personally been going back to roots. I think that really helped, going back into the kitchen, going back to doing the basic things in life which one just took for granted, and I think it's just actually helped me become a more wholesome, and I'm feeling that I'm feeling happier with the changes that I see in myself. I'm reading more. I'm doing more things which give me joy. Okay, I mean, one was all the time going from one thing to the next. I think just slowing down and thinking and looking within has been a big takeaway.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Ma'am, this question is a bit So, ma'am, as to your experience, ma'am, how do you compare studies in India and studies in abroad?
Yeah, I've just come back from the US, and I mean, of course, I was seeing my grandkids studying, and I just felt that their whole, especially in the foundational stage, young years, their concentration on communicating and articulating what you want to say. Okay? The emphasis on that is much more than on content and how much you read. I mean, how many subjects, how many things that you know. It's more on the basics of being a person who's aware. Okay, a person who communicates well, who's able to express well. So the basic reading, comprehension, speaking, their concentration on that is very high. Okay, and so when you're able to express better, right? I mean, I feel that we think we say we are very good with English, the language, right? But even now we will not get the correct words at times because we've not paid attention to communicative skills at a very young age, right? And that I think is a very big lesson that I've learned. I mean, also the fact that a lot of thing is coming from their real everyday life, and it's not theoretical. So most of their learning is related to what life is about, where the environment in which they are growing up, and all of that. So I think it's more what do you say, relevant for them for in the given environment that they are growing up. I think we are. I think we just tend to be more theoretical, So the context, we lose out the context. I think that's what we somewhere, miss out on that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So like I was sharing with you about, and I'm just sharing a very personal experience. So my son is going through a little difficult period. And, so he's a child who's always been, he's not a child anymore, but he's a grown up adult. But, the other day he told me something that, he said that, I always had the instincts of being adventurous and learning by making mistakes. Okay. And I mean, he was one person a child who could not be told that this is wrong and he would learn it. He had to make the mistake and then learn that it's wrong, right? And as what life has taught him as he went along is that, there came a point where he said, I didn't want to do any wrong thing, right? And so now the fact that he's all the time trying to keep himself away from a situation which will prompt him to do the wrong thing. So when I said, it's circumstances that make you do certain things, right? How do you avoid doing wrong things? So you avoid those circumstances. You avoid being in situations. So you're conscious about entering into those situations where you might your move go back towards your. So if his natural tendency is to do it the wrong way, right, or to do a wrong thing to get his way, then you avoid going into that situation. Okay, that's again comes from a lot of introspection. That I am this is who am I? So I'm this kind of a person, right? So when do I make a mistake, or where do I what do I want to correct? So if I want to correct it, then I avoid being in a situation where I make that mistake. Okay? And I think the more you do these kind of projects and research work, you will this will remain with you. So long after all the whatever the details have gone away, the essence of this presentation will remain with you. That's why I said, how does you personalize this project,
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, also I hate to be the one asking questions. It's just that I'm inquisitive.
Yeah.
But so there are, how do you take certain things as a boon or a bane? So according to you, how do we take this year that's just gone by as a blessing?
Yeah. I think it's a blessing because people have gotten out of their comfort zones. I think that's very, very important because we thought life would continue to be the way, the way we were living it, right? And complacency, according to me, is the biggest threat to any organization, to any individual, or to any profession. I always used to feel, especially for educators and teachers, and I used to feel that we get complacent. There was a time when teachers used to feel a sense of pride that They knew their textbooks that which they taught from cover to cover, page number, what's there on each page number, things like that. That's the kind of pride they felt that I, if a child asks me, if a student asks me about any topic, I will be able to tell them which page what is written, right? And that used to be a great sense of pride for teachers. And so that's what. So if you can't be proud of the fact that you know the book. There's knowledge is expanding, right? And if you're just going to be confined to your textbook, and you will just get complacent, and you will never grow. So complacency leads to stagnation. And if you need to grow, you need to be continuously creating a disequilibrium around you. Okay, because that's the only way you will go to a higher equilibrium, right? So for me, I feel, of course, for us, technology was not such a major. So going online was not a very major challenge. But the fact that every teacher was able to bring their creativity to the fore, that's been the boon. The kind of creativity we've seen in online classes by the teachers, by the students, I have not seen in 3.5 decades that I've been in education. So the other thing, as a teacher, I feel teachers have started to take pride in the work they're doing. Okay, and that's a very big thing. Because if teachers are proud of what they're doing, they're going to push themselves a little more, and that's how the system will change for the better. Right? So we've learned a lot of lessons. This is, of course, a very technical thing, but in terms of reflecting on life itself, there have been many, many lessons. Yeah. Ritika ma'am, you want to add something?
Yes, ma'am. I would say, if you put yourself, you've asked this question to Beer, ma'am. I would say, Aaron, if you were able to answer this question yourself, how do you think, what's the silver lining been for you? I think, we've answered that question. So at least for me and for students as well, I've seen that students have transformed in the sense like, we are, like ma'am said, exams are not important. Passing the exams is not important this year. We don't do, as a school, we don't do things for the sake of it. Just so I want to tick the checkbox, so I have to conduct an exam in a particular manner. I've in fact, if you remember, I shared this with Anita ma'am just before, and with Beer ma'am as well. Just before your summatives, we scrapped the summatives, your test series. And I said, no, we are not having them because it's just a written paper and I'm not interested that we do it. And this is not just me. This is what the ethos of the school is. And it trickles down from Beer ma'am because she's the one who's been a trailblazer. And she's the one who's taught us that we don't have to do certain things because we've been doing it for the longest time, So what we learned in this year is that for me, it does not matter that you have, whether it's a 3-hour paper, whether it's a 2-hour paper, does it have to be written? Does it have to be a viva? No, the important part is what you have learned this year. The value add that ma'am talked about. Even if you've done a music lesson, forget your studies. If you added a kind of a hobby to your, schedule in the year and you were able to, not master it, but if you were able to retain that interest throughout the year, that's your silver lining. If you've been able to cook in the kitchen, you've been able to find that a hobby, that a stress buster, that has been a silver lining. So there's so many facets we've added to ourselves throughout this year. I think that should be a, win-win.
Yes.
Ma'am, I just have a small question because you mentioned that we don't have to keep doing the same things that we've been doing for a long time. A change is required and a change is constant. So I just thought of this one thing. I was having a conversation with my mother, and there's always this gap of communication gap of things she's been doing for the past years and what I have learned. So it's whether it's politics, it's religion, or anything. There's something there's always a difference. So I just want to know that how can we as students cover that gap of conversations and make them understand our point of view, and also be able to understand what our parents are trying to convey us. And even if it's with teachers, sometimes if you're sitting in an economics class and sometimes we're like, ma'am, no, this political view of us, this is something different, and her political views are different. So I just want to find that common ground between us and the teachers and parents. So I just want to know something about that.
I think the basic essence or the essential for any communication is empathy. Okay, so if one has empathy, you're able to accept a different viewpoint from another person. So it bridges any kind of gap that could be between two people, talking about a topic or whatever, right? Or they're expressing their views. Because if you're able to accept, what the other person is saying with an open mind, right? And you could have an open dialogue or a conversation. So conversation is very important. That's why today, in fact, it's good that you brought up, because today, right now, the environment, the time that we're living in, people are scared to even express their views. So again, in a safe environment, can we at least, because just keeping it within you also, then it doesn't get all the the kind of richness that you would want your thoughts to have. So it's important to express it, because when you express, then when you start to put it in words, it gives it more depth, right? But again, not to take it to the point of argument, okay, but let it be a conversation. That's one. And that could be between generations. So it could be age related, it could be ideology, it could be politics, it could be anything. It could be an economic theory. So one of the good things about economics that you mentioned is that, if you look at economic theories, how they evolved over the years and in different parts of the world, and how different economies evolved, was based on what was happening in the world or in that part of the world at that point of time. So the Great Depression happened. So capitalism, so failed. So again, it's about how countries or how economies evolve over time is based on, and so how different economic thoughts came into being also was a reaction or a response to what is happening at that time, right? So history affected economics just as economics would have maybe affected history. Yeah. So like that, right? So therefore there is no right or wrong economic theory, and it's not as if all economic theories are set in stone, because each new theory will nullify the older one, okay, based on the assumptions and based on the observations that you make at that point of time. So that's the beauty of life. It's continuously evolving. So keep that in mind, that you are continuously evolving. And so even if you're listening to somebody who has a viewpoint which is very different from yours, but that person is able to validate and support that argument, there is something you've learned from that. You've learned something. You may not agree with it, but you've learned another aspect, perhaps, another perspective. Okay? So I think that if you have that kind of an approach to life, then so while you don't lose yourself, you have your own thought, but you're also open to other people's viewpoints.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Well, now that we have bombarded you teachers with all of our questions,
but it's really interesting.
Yeah, I think we're empty now. So if you have any questions for us.
Yeah, I you know what, I've been in your classes off and on, but somehow I just feel that I'm not now on any platform where the children are, where the youth is. And so, of course, we do have these. I'm glad we had today's session. So I'm getting this opportunity to hear you and to feel the pulse, because one of the things that we've always prided ourselves in as a school is that we've constantly felt the pulse of students. Okay, and so we've continuously changed our own approach to children and youth based on our what feedback we've got from students. But this year has been, in that sense, even though we've interacted, but it's still not been the same. So I'm kind of feeling the disconnect. I'm feeling, where is the youth? What are they thinking? Where is the world, the country? There's such a turmoil, right? And I just want to hear, I want to know what are they thinking, So therefore, assemblies like this are very meaningful for me, because it gives me an insight into your mind and your, I'm getting your voice. So otherwise, I don't know. We are not getting a platform. So we are not on any common platform where we are all, meeting and exchanging. So that is why these assemblies are very, very critical.
Yes, ma'am.
Anybody wants to maybe, share what they are going through? I mean, what is the youth feeling? Where are they right now? What are they
Ma'am,
thinking of the government?
I would like to tell you about school itself. As it suppose now in the beginning, in March and April, I was, to be very honest, quite happy that I didn't have to come to school. I was just done with my 10th and I was fed up. I was like, why do I need to study now? I didn't want to study anymore. As in, I thought that I need a break, because my boards got over 2 weeks after that school started online. So I was quite tired. Then in May also, we didn't get a proper break. We got a break later. So in May also, I was like, now I was fed up. I was like, May vacation also we are not getting. What is this? Then as June, July went by, it became more of a rigmarole. The same things again and again. And then I thought that, even keeping the studies part aside, even if whole of 11th I didn't study, I kept my books on the side. Even if I went to school, I didn't pay attention. At least I had my friends. As in, that was that one point that was missing. As in, I could have met new people. I could have interacted with more people. And there's always some learning. Even in classes, even if you don't want to study, there is some learning, and it would have been very different. So now, at this point, after a year going by, definitely I want to come to school. But that's after the online exams. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I got it. So I understand that fatigue has set in big time for all of us. Okay? And the fact that it seems like an endless, we don't see the end in sight. So we are feeling the frustration and the fatigue even more. There's fatigue across and especially for students and teachers, because they've not had, I know that some schools across the country have opened, but not in Mumbai, right? So we've not stepped out, and of course, in our school we're still going out, but not so much still. So the fatigue of online is definitely a factor to contend with. I also understand that there must be learning gaps, and it's human nature not to. To take the easy way out, right? All of us would do that. And I would want to help you maybe in the way we will do the exams. Even if we do the online, you see, the concern that I think what Nitika ma'am has and the teachers have is that, people are not being honest about, and for us, it is not about the marks again. It's about, assessing. It's like your own feedback to yourself. So if you can suggest to the school, what could be the best way of evaluating the learning that has happened or whatever you have? Okay, I don't care. I'm okay to experiment with a new method. If you don't have academic subjects, you want to assess only on maybe what you want to be tested on.
So, ma'am, also may I just add something?
Yeah.
So what happens, students, is like I've already said, the concern is not, your concern also should not just be online or offline. I saw that Aaron had a beaming smile on his face when ma'am said that probably it's going to be online, and he's already assumed that it's going to be online. The point is not, is there a tussle between, why this whole thing between, like ma'am said, why are we making this issue about online or offline? So you've always been writing exams, right? You've always been attending school. You've always been sitting for a 3-hour paper or look at what CBSE has done and what ma'am says. In the month of September, we've conducted NEET. That was, our school was a center, and September, probably that was the peak, you know. So it's not that you will not believe, I've got requests from parents, and this is as close as yesterday, and they're saying, ma'am, whether it's permitted or not, can we please have an offline exam for my child, because CBSE is ultimately going to be an offline exam, right? So we've got mixed. So who do we listen to? You know, there are parents who are sending us this mail. There's one parent who says, my husband is, my brother is in BMC and my brother-in-law is in DMC, and I'm going to make sure that, enough pressure is exerted so that the schools reopen, you know. So we are getting so many mixed messages from all, some want, some don't want, you know. So the fact is not, that is exactly what I'm telling you. The issue over here should not be offline or online. You have to study, and this is the base, you know. For you just imagine, if you're going to say that 11th, you've forgotten what you've done exactly and you move to grade 12. How will it serve your purpose, you know? I am absolutely fine. The problem is not, the fact is not that we are sadists sitting over here and I want to make it, more difficult for you. As it is, the year has been difficult for you, students.
Quite fair.
Yeah, this whole year you should have been enjoying yourself. In 11th, the kind of the apart from the syllabus, the kind of stuff that we do in school. You know, please ask your teachers. Please ask everyone. You know, your probably your seniors. That's 1 year that we get with grade 11, and we make the most of it in terms of events, in terms of activities, in terms of classroom time. I would say we would leverage everything. You know.
Yeah. So you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to deviate a little from the topic because I know Aaron, why you have so many questions regarding online and offline. And like I said, B ma'am and Nitika ma'am, is the community answers will not help you, and we are also not looking at the marks. So it is about how much content you read for yourself. So that matters. So just my little personal experience during this lockdown, ma'am, and students also, that when we used to prepare for these kind of short assembly presentation, there was a lot of bonding which used to happen between the teachers and the students. And yes, a few days back when we started with this kind of, and the entire we have been doing it virtually. So yesterday, personally, I missed that kind of connect. It's not that I'm disconnected with the students or teachers are feeling disconnected, but there were certain things which we could not, those lighter moments which used to happen in person, we all are missing it, and especially with you. So now as the teachers are coming, so we are bonding and see Pooja ma'am and me sitting together. I left my room because I'm feeling very left out in that room. So these are the times and the moments even we are missing. And we want you to come back and stop writing community answers because we know about your strategy. So don't do that and listen to ma'am. Just study and concentrate on your content and exam. That's it. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, let him speak now. Yeah.
If you don't mind, I would like to add something. I just wanted to say that this year, because our school has even changed, so we weren't able to meet our new teachers either. So that is one of the things I'm most regretful about, that I wasn't able to get to know my teachers and they weren't able to get to know me.
True.
And I'm missing those interactions a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Ma'am, are those activities carried forward?
So you know what I would suggest is that one entire loss, the loss of that 1 year, we are going to make it up for you in grade 12.
Yeah, have a blast.
Hoping that we are going to be here sooner than later, because
Nitika, ma'am, we will also have to do a combined farewell, because this
yes.
hasn't had a farewell.
Yes.
Ma'am, 12th standard students have already started, their major concern is, ma'am, please do not do farewell virtually.
That would be a major injustice to them, because as it is, it's been a...
But I think the value of the farewell has really gone up now. You know, I mean, we had started getting, what is the use of a farewell? Why should we do it? But now I think we all craving for it so much that when we finally have the farewell, it's going to be, we'll have so much more value. True. Yeah. Yes, Aaron. Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
So, ma'am, what exactly do you want to?
I wanted to know what and how would you want us to assess the year that has gone by? So we want to kind of give it a finale, right? A final thing. What have I learned? What
Okay,
is
so
the
see,
year?
ma'am, I'll tell you my personal opinion. I don't know if the rest of the students, what I think is, this is the most fair option. What I really think is, after, if the exams are conducted online, the first semester of 12th, you can, if it's given offline, you can assess and see if the child has actually been studying. And if the student, he or she has not been, does not perform or underperforms, you can, those students can be asked to give in a retest or anything. So I think the first semester of 12th, whenever that is, if that's in June or whenever. So for now, actually, I think is to diffuse this situation. It's not really about online, offline, because we really have to study. Like for me personally, my parents, actually, my mom sits with me during my exam, and she is the one who actually clicks, as in when time up, she is the one who clicks the photos and submits it. So it's not about that. So this is what my personal suggestion is. After it's done online, then in 12th, how much ever you're assessing, as in the 12th portion or the 11th portion, whatever is being assessed, if there must be, I won't say a benchmark, but only if a student underperforms or doesn't perform too well, you can ask that student, confront the student and speak to the student, and maybe a retest, or y'all have your ways and you know better. So.
Okay, so I'm going to suggest something very radical, Nitika ma'am. One is that let's decentralize the exams. Okay, so every class teacher has a closed room discussion with her class. Okay, and listen to what the children in her class are saying. I mean, it could be class teacher, it could be subject teacher. I don't know which you have to decide. And see if we can, have a different approach to the examination.
So, ma'am, I'm sorry to cut you in, but I'm really sorry. But 2 days ago, I had a meeting with the HODs, and I told them that we're going to flip the whole 3 hours thing. And we already, you won't believe I have the paper over here. I'm not going to share the entire thing, but I have this paper over here. We flipped the whole thing. We are not giving them a 3-hour paper. We are taking vivas. We are taking we are taking just a 1.5-hour paper, and that too we are doing a lot of mix and whatever. It's not going to be a 3-hour written paper for them at all. We very, very consciously took this decision that I don't want to, like I said, the point is not that I just want to tick my checkbox. I've completed the exam. My students have given the exam. Please stop. So Gurung sir, Zija ma'am, the other HODs, we sat, and I said, I'm scrapping that whole thing of 3 hours, honestly, honest to God. And they came up with so many suggestions. I think English department, have you been updated? Were you updated about that? Neha has updated you, right? So we just said we are scrapping that 3 hours totally.
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so that's why don't worry, students. We are
so let's bring the excitement into exams. Okay, let's look at the exams as something that's going to it's a project that we are doing. Okay, so this is it's been a year of experimentation. So let's just try a new experiment. Okay, I would also say that go beyond just academics. I don't mind if students say that I want to be tested on resilience and or on my integrity, okay, or on what I learned through my life skills or what I learned through my presentations, okay, and or personally, if they've had any kind of experience which they would, which we may not know about, but they feel that that's something that they want to talk about, okay, and they want to, it could be not just about testing them, it's about what this year has been for them, which could be a little bit academic, it could have many aspects to it. Okay, so I think somewhere I think Suman ma'am did that with the secondary section. They did some kind of a viva which was very different from the normal from the textbook questions and all that. So let's just try and see this year, because you see it doesn't make any sense if they are like you said, it's not like putting a tick mark in the checkbox. Okay, let's not do that. It doesn't make any sense, right? So let every class teacher, because they know it has to be done in small groups. We can't do it like this, but we can do it in our small groups. Let the class teacher and the subject teacher of that class have a conversation with the children and decide what is the best way they want, and give the students the choice also. Let them express what is it that, but we want to kind of, it has to be a year where we say, okay, so we broke boundaries, but these boundaries, but we broke them for a purpose, and we got something out of it. Okay, not just because it's to show off. It's that we got something out of breaking that boundary or a convention. Okay, so, and it has to have value. So remember what we said, that we don't, as a school, we don't do things just because they have to be done. We don't do things which are flippant and frivolous. Okay, which have no meaning, because they have to have some value in your life that you remember. Because this is a year you're going to remember. Remember, you are going to be a generation which will have so many stories to tell, right? The pandemic, and then how education changed and how you changed, right? So make it. So I want you to remember that even when we're finishing this grade 11 and this whole, hopefully the pandemic year, okay, what is the value that this pandemic year has had for you? What have you learned from this? Okay, maybe we can do that, Nitika ma'am. That could be their project. It could maybe include some elements of what they've learned, and they can share what they've learned, and they tell us what they've learned, and we can judge their learning, and we can maybe not judge, but we can maybe question them on that, what they've learned, right?
Absolutely.
Pooja ma'am, does that make some sense? I mean, you worked with children, and you have your own son. So do you think this is going to be of value? Because, finally, I think whatever we do has to have some meaning for the kids.
Yes, ma'am. Actually, when you were talking, I was just thinking that we could do some kind of a multi or interdisciplinary kind of a project wherein all the other subjects could assess them based on that one project.
Yeah.
Something like that can be looked at.
Yeah, and you present that. I mean, it could be that. I mean, it's up to you completely. So let's just break that whole about exams being on, because it doesn't make sense. It could be an open book exam. I remember there was a year when one of our students and he asked me something about exams, and he said we were doing the what was it? He said the test series. Was it what was it? Nitika Simran had asked me.
Yes,
and then he changed something about the exam. And he was talking about why exams tend to become a big, hawa for.
He talked about two things. He said the first formatives should go because the formatives make no sense. They didn't make any sense to him. So for that year we didn't conduct the first formatives at all. And for test series, they just became check series.
Yeah, that's one. And also, I think. Remember, we did we had a 1 hour. So before the exam, we did 1 hour of revision with the teacher on the subjects that they were going to be, for the examination that day, and we discussed all the questions that were there in the paper. Isn't it?
So students, this was supposed to be a surprise, and ma'am being the intuitive ma'am,
I didn't know that.
Our intuitive self, So before I could spring that surprise on the students, she's already spilled the beans. So now,
and honestly, I didn't know that they were planning it, but I'm just saying that as a school, we believe that every experience should leave a mark on your memories. I mean, you should feel that it added some value to you. Okay, so if this year exams are different, it has to have some meaning. It has to have a purpose. Okay, it's not about wanting to fail anybody or retesting somebody. A retest we will do whenever we feel the need again. Okay, but for us, I mean, we want you to, when you go to grade 12, when you finish school, you should remember that grade 11 was a year of some value. Okay, and we want you to think about that. What is the value that you got from this year? It's not about writing a 3-hour exam at all. Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
In fact, I think one of the things that they did was about being your own auditor, right? So you are monitoring your own exam, isn't it, Nitika? You did that, right? That they were monitoring themselves. There was nobody, no invigilator, right?
Yeah. And even in school, ma'am, we've done. I don't know whether they know that, but in school we've had students invigilating the students. We've not had teachers invigilating students.
Again, like I said, when you are going to be writing your profile, right, or you're writing your resume, and what is going to distinguish you from all other students who are applying for the same, slot, is what you have gained, what is special, what is the different, what is the differentiating factor. Okay, and that is what we want you to think about. What differentiates you? What makes you stand apart? Okay, and experiences like this will help you to think differently. All right, so we'll do that, Nitika ma'am, Anita. We could maybe let the teachers and come up with, it doesn't matter if we have to delay, it doesn't matter. The idea is that it has to be meaningful. And it has to appeal to the students.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes, ma'am.
Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely, ma'am.
Yes,
we will have one more story to write. So our school is full of such stories.
Yes.
This is how the school has evolved to be what it is.
Yeah. So we'd already had some discussions today as well regarding that. So as ma'am said, now since she's already shared it with y'all, we were anyway supposed to send out a mail to the parents to tell them that it's not going to be a 3-hour paper. So in fact, my car students don't know about it, and I'm sure the networking is strong. Yeah, but ma'am, we don't need to worry. The networking is so strong. The students are.
Yeah, and they're going to say. And I'm sure they're going to tell you, how did the Powai students get it before us?
Ma'am,
because when we had the last conversation,
ma'am, there are times when me and Nitika ma'am and myself, we have conversation later, and then things reach across Powai and Kar.
Yeah. So they were
strong is the network.
That's the beauty of.
I'm happy.
Yeah, I am so glad. I wouldn't want it any other way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. So, anyway, any more questions for us? Anyone?
Aaron, anything you want to say? Does that satisfy?
Ma'am, you're the best judge to decide what has to be done, what not. But if you have taken this decision, it's fair.
Yesterday, I'm just sorry to cut you in between. Yesterday, Aaron and Raghav, so they were bullying me, and then they started saying, "What is the qualification of Beam ma'am?" And
that was Raghav.
A little more about Beam ma'am. So I said, there is a Wikipedia page which is there in her name. So why dedicated to her? Why don't you explore that? So then he started asking few questions, which some answers I gave and some I didn't, because I knew you had better answers. So but I did ask him, do ask question. Ma'am is very, very generous in answering your question. So I hope Raghav and Aaron, you have got all answers from Beam ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
I like that thing on the invite.
Just to add over here, Aaron, Raghav, other students who are here, all of you who are here. So just like you have certain reservations about the offline exams, we have certain reservations because we know what goes on online. So like I said, I don't want to just conduct something just to complete the formality. So ma'am, they have a lot of like I said, their networking is so strong. So right from car to power, so they have groups. So the minute there's a question that comes, they've got groups answering. There's a like Anita ma'am said, community answers. And those get
But Nitika ma'am, you must remember that this at this age, these are the things that you all this is part of growing up.
So,
But ma'am, you are generous. You are generous. Nitika ma'am and myself, we are not that generous, ma'am.
I can afford to be.
the best part was that we didn't want this exercise only because we realized the futility of conducting it. Because so then we said, let us come up with something which is not going to be a burden for them, but at the same time, like what you said, at the same time, let their concepts. Let us at least know that their concepts are clear.
Yeah, I mean, I want to share with you. My granddaughter is 8 years old, and so she was she's learning Spanish, and she was finding it extremely hard. And so she started school, like she started going to school, and earlier she had this translator on all the time, so she could quickly translate things from English to Spanish to and vice versa, and that was the shortcut that she used all the time. Now when she went to school, the school on their laptops, the school had put some kind of these filters. I mean, they couldn't do it. And still, in spite of that, she was able to still translate. I mean, at 8 years, she still found a shortcut, So, and I saw her doing her online class and how she was taking the online class. She's eating, she's doing her makeup, she's playing a game, she's teaching me Spanish while she's also listening to the teacher. And I was amazed to see, an 8-year-old and how is she handling online classes. And so, I mean, it's across the board, across the country. This is the age. As a student, you will all do it. We've all done it. So it's all right. Yeah.
We wrap it up now.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ananya.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you,
well,
ma'am.
well, thank you to Veer ma'am and all our esteemed guests for sparing time for us. And your sparkling thoughts will always continue to inspire us in the future. Thank you, teachers and my dear friends, for being a part of this journey and being a part of this assembly and always encouraging us to do our best. So thank you all, and we will see you in another assembly in the future. And Abnita ma'am, thank you so much again for being a part of this.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Thank you,
students.
ma'am.
Congratulations to each one of you.
Thank you, Anita ma'am.
Thank you, Nitika ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Bye. Thank you, Pooja. Bye-bye.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, teachers. Thank you,
ma'am. Thank you, children.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, all of you.